Okay, that's me, fancy title, all that kind of stuff. Okay. Yeah, we did. Had fun. Oh.
There we go.
Okay. Here we are, looking for the perfect turf grass for Virginia. And good old days, it was very easy. Everything was K31. That's all you could buy in the store, big sacks of K31. Now there are 60-yard ones you can buy, mixes of them, there are all kinds of different ones. But in the old times, everything was K31. And the Tidewater difference, of course, is that we are here in the Tidewater area where our soils all came from someplace else. So our soils are very unique. So we're not in the Ridge and Valley, we're not in the Blue Ridge, we're not in the other parts of Virginia where the soils are quite different. All the soils got here from there and are continuing to change as we go through our weather cycles. So the Tidewater difference is very real. We do reports differently. We get different results than if you were in Blacksburg, Virginia, as an example. So we have a very different deal here. The transition zone is another area that it makes us different. In the beginning, you may remember the old TV show, The Twilight Zone. The Twilight Zone, well, that's what the transition zone is. We're actually in a twilight zone when it comes to picking turf grasses for Virginia. We have so many different varieties that will grow here. Basically, everything will grow here, and we can ruin everything, and we can make everything very, very prosperous. So it's a very different situation. And tall fescue is still at the top of our list. If you were to go back again 20 years ago, tall fescue was probably 90% of what we wrote in the way of plans for homeowners. If you were to look at us this year, it's very much closer to 50-50. That's the big difference. We probably have 50% warm season, and we can probably go back and get some of this data, out of the soil results. Used to be able to do that, but my computer doesn't work anymore. So, but we should be able to see what the story is. But we are now more like 50-50. And a lot of that has to do with new development, because a lot of the new locations are warm season turf. Stuff that used to be cool season. For instance, years and years ago, covered his land when it first opened up. You couldn't have a lawn unless it was tall fescue. That was it. No ifs, ands, or buts. Now, if you go back to governor's land, you can have anything as long as it's green. That's their new deal. So it can be warm season painted in the wintertime, whatever it is to keep it green, that's what you have to do. So from place to place, we have been changing the way we view the kind of turf that we use. Also, the county has got on the bandwagon. And we do a lot of proffers for developers who come into the county and they want a change in zoning, or they want something from the county. And the county says, okay, but when you do your project, we want you to do a turf proposal for the project. And what they've been recommending to a lot of developers is they do warm season turf. So we have a lot of the newer communities that are completely sodded with Bermuda grass primarily. There are a few that have some zoysia grass, but most of it's Bermuda grass. So over time now, more and more warm season turf is showing up. I don't know if you like Wawa, but they put a new Wawa over on Richmond Road and Lightfoot. If you look at that beautiful turf they put in, Bermuda, everywhere you go, you see new turf, a new project approved by the county. And what is it? But it's warm season turf. And it's Bermuda in most cases.
Is that James City and York County or just James City?
It's primarily James City. We don't have a lot to do with York. Because they don't get involved with, with our turf program. Really. James City County has supported turf club from, 22 years ago. That's how we got started. It was a James City program. York never got into it. York had their own fellow over there whose name escapes me, but everybody knows. Everybody knows who he is. He's retired. He ran his own turf thing, and that was it. So they really do their own thing. But James City County definitely has a bent towards the warm season side of things. And of course, Tall Fescue has a lot of things going for it, which is why it's still used a great deal. There are developers now who are still using Tall Fescue sod, and there are over 100 seeded or sodded varieties available. So there's a lot of stuff out there to pick from, and it's all on the recommended list. There are other considerations too. It has a little bit of an aversion to shade, so it doesn't do as well in the shade as some other cultivars. But it will persist on poor soils, which is very important. Because when we get into a new location in particular, we get into, and we'll discuss it a little bit later, the new location is what we call urban soil. And urban soil is soil that's been altered from what was there prior to the development. And urban soil doesn't bear too much resemblance to the good stuff, the real good stuff. It's got all kinds of stuff in it that gives us growing problems. So, but it's nice to know that you got a turf that will establish somewhat poor soils. It's dark green, fertilities low to medium. It is a good drought avoider. It's not as good as Bermuda and Zoysia, nowhere near as good, but it's a good drought avoider. It also comes, the seeds are endophyte enhanced, and the endophyte is in the seed itself, and it grows with the plant, and it stays in the root system, and it keeps the plant from developing disease problems. So it's endophyte enhanced. You have an automatic system of fighting diseases built into the seed itself. So it is endophyte enhanced. It is a bunch type. Bunch type means you got a bunch of grass, nothing going in either direction. So if you have a bare spot next to a bunch of grass, what happens? You get a weed. So that's the one problem with bunch grass. There's nothing to move into where you have the bare spot except the wheat and other things that you don't want. So that's one of the big problems with bunch type. We also use fine fescues a lot. If you go to Blacksburg and you go to the turf farm in Blacksburg, and I recommend it as a field trip sometime, because it's wonderful to go through the entire turf farm and look at all the different plots of things that are being evaluated. You will find, you have to go look for the fine bladed fescues. They're planted in the woods. You gotta go find them in there because they do better. Leave me alone, baby, is the way they want to be handled. So they do better all by themselves. So do them in the woods, mow them very little, fertilize them very little, and they look very nice. But we live on.
Which one of those do you recommend for hardiness
We all would recommend a mixture,
of those
And-
three?
yeah, like a chewing red,
Yeah.
chewing red fescue, and the hard fescue. There are sheep fescues, there's a bunch of them, and they usually come in a mix. And the mix is usually deep shade. So if you go to Lowe's or Home Depot or wherever you shop, and you will find that there'll be a deep shade mix. And you look in there, and there it'll be. Gina and I live in our neighborhood 25 years now. We have an old Woodley in St. Andrews Village, you know, and that is at Ford's College. And we have this beautiful little roundabout. And there's a stand of fine bladed fescue. That's been there for 25 years. It doesn't go nowhere. They don't mow it too often. They don't do too much with it. But it's beautiful looking stuff. Very fine bladed, very dark green, looks nice. So it works very well. And it does very well in deep shade. So if you have people who need a deep shade mix, you will find a mix that includes that. It's also endophyte enhanced and very good shade tolerance. So that's why you'll find it in shade mixes. So there we go. Mowing quality is poor. It does tend to thatch if you mow it too much. And it also gets, fortunately, what a lot of other turfs get is a brown patch. Rhizoctonia, which is the key problem with turf in general. Yes,
What do you mean by poor mowing quality? What do you mean by poor mowing quality?
if you want to look at the best mowed lawn on my street, you will see the zoysia lawns. Then you'll see the tall fescue lawns. And then you'll see all the others. The mowing quality is very good. Every blade standing up, cut them off really good. Sometimes you have to use a very sharp mower blade, like the Bermuda grass, to do it. But if you go into the fine fescue area, it sort of falls over. It doesn't stand up straight. It's not easy to mow, and it doesn't look as perfect. Put it that way. As the others. So again, it's up to what you want and what you willing to live with.
Well, I take the argument on that.
Okay, well, that's good.
Because there's a zoysia lawn in my street, which
Yeah.
looks really nice. I have a fescue on it too.
Yeah, okay.
And my guess is the taller you cut the fescue, the better it looks.
Oh, absolutely.
So this year I cut mine at 4.5 inches all summer. And I will argue that my lawn looks better than anybody on the street. And I'm the only fescue lawn on my street.
Okay, but you have full face. Oh, we're not
No,
talking-
I actually mixed it.
Okay, yeah, but you have good, and I would think you just take it half the lecture right there. The best thing you can do for a tall fescue lawn is raise the mower blade. Cut back on all the other issues that you have to worry about if you keep the blade on. And you can cut back on the amount of herbicides you have to use too. I mean, if you look at the research done at Virginia Tech, and there's a slide somewhere here, which we may end up with, but it shows the lawn cut of 1 inch, 2 inch, 3 inch, and it shows the percent crabgrass by October. And 3 inch, the percent crabgrass is 1. Okay, at 1 inch, the percent crabgrass is 33. So that just gives you an idea just mowing height, what that does for you in terms of turf quality. So keep the blade up there, keep it sharp, 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 sharp. That's the one thing about the tall fescue. You really need to keep that blade sharp. And most of our lawn service companies, if they sharpen the blade once a month, I think it's wonderful. But to me, I don't think they ever sharpen the bloody things. So we're beating the turf to death rather than cutting it.
Well, they also don't, their height is never.
Yeah, right,
I
exactly.
mean, they usually cut grass way too short.
No, we're all in the same boat. And Fan is the guy who cuts most of us, so we know Fan. He's been around a while. Am I doing something?
No, I moved the laptop. The folks online couldn't quite hear you.
Oh,
So
my
now
God.
they can hear you better.
Oh, okay.
Same buttons though.
Oh, okay. Okay. All right. Okay. New and cool season. New. Rhizonomous tall fescues. These are tall fescues that are not bunch 100%. They have minimal rhizomes, rhizominous. So grande is a big one, and they will actually go into the bare spots. And hybrid bluegrass is another really big thing that we should consider, because hybrid bluegrass, which is a cross between Texas blue, which is good for heat drought, like Texas heat drought, and Kentucky blue, which is bluegrass state, which is wonderful stuff. It's cross germinated, cross pollinated. Let me get my botany down straight here. It's cross pollinated. It was done right here in North Carolina, and it produced Durablue and Thermal Blue, which is a hybrid bluegrass. Now, the good thing about hybrid bluegrass is it has stolons and it has rhizomes. So it's all over the place. And so you mix it with tall fescue, which is a bunch growth, and now you add another cultivar, which fills in all the blanks. And that's what you try to do, fill in the blanks. You don't want to have any place for weeds to show up or other issues to happen that you don't want. So Durablue Thermal Blue is not available, but I do have a seed clipping from Ace Hardware that shows another hybrid bluegrass mixed with 3 tall fescues. And I'll give you a copy of that if you like, because that's available right here in Ace Hardware. It's mixed by Southern Bell. It's their own mix. And it's 90% tall fescue and 10% the hybrid blue. But what you have to remember is tall fescue seed is very large. There's about 250,000 seeds in a pound, where the bluegrass is very small. There's like 1 million seeds in a pound. So when you mix the two together, 90-10 becomes 50-50. There we go. So look for it at Ace Hardware. And again, promising mixes with tall fescue, and they're available at your local store. Okay, Bermuda. We got lots of Bermuda around, more and more. 2 types, obviously. One is common, which means you can go to seed store and buy a bag of common Bermuda seed and broadcast it all over the place, and you will have a Bermuda grass lawn. The other types are the hybrid types, which we grow on the sod farms. And we end up putting those on our sports fields, on our golf courses, and we do those by means of sprigs. Usually we do a sports field, we'll bring in a whole truckload of sprigs and we'll grind them into the sports field water the daylights out of it until it establishes. So that, but those are Bermuda grasses that are the hybrid types, and you can't grow them from seed. They're vegetarily established with either sprigs or sod. Yes, ma'am.
I thought at one point you said there were some hybrid seeds that if you mixed it with the Bermuda, common Bermuda, that the hybrid would eventually take over. But so that you're saying there is no hybrid type seed.
We're probably, the hybrid Bermuda is mainly from
Only vegetative.
vegetative. There are many, many very good seeds available that you can mix with common. Princess 77 is one of the first ones that came out. It's a beautiful seed, and you can mix it. You could do a complete lawn with Princess 77. If you know where Outback Steakhouse is, and you drive in from Outback Steakhouse, there's that little lovely little community in there. First house on the right. One of the Lawn Rangers, many moons ago, we bought $200 worth of Princess seed and planted his lawn. And it's still going. It's about 15 years old, and it's still going.
Does
So
it look better than the common Bermuda?
eventually, the Princess 77 and the other ones that are available locally, Yukon is another one locally available. Eventually, they will take over the stand. So the good stuff eventually takes over the common stuff. So it was a question back.
Yes, I'm sorry I'm late.
No problem.
Tell us about the coated seed. Coated Bermuda. What's the disadvantage, and is it even available in certain?
Most of the seeds that are coated are done by Pennington Seed Company. They're great for coating the seeds. And I don't have an awful lot of data on how well they are, what the coating does. I had a problem with quackgrass in my Bermuda, and I got out there and I pulled all the quackgrass out, and piece by piece, about a dozen big quackgrass. And I went and I bought a package of Pennington seed at Home Depot, and it was coated seed. And supposedly got all the stuff right with the seed to get it started. Has a little bit of coating, a little bit of starter fertilizer with it. And that's basically what the coating is. It gives it a kind of a jump on doing it the long way. It's a bit of a shortcut. I did not have very good luck with it, so I can't really comment. It didn't do very well for me, but somebody else might have better results.
So I was an intern and I went to one place where the senior ranger recommended a Bermuda seed. But he said, I think he said get hulled, coated. And I started Googling this stuff, and I couldn't even find it produced that way. I don't know if it's called, but there was there were two things he wanted in that seed. He was recommended for this.
Yeah, well, you don't have to worry about any of it. You just look for Princess 77 or Yukon, or
like that.
in fact, I got them on the list here. There's a bunch of them. We have a copy of the list. All of those, you don't have to worry about any coating or anything else. And you don't have to worry about hold or not hold. Forget about hold, not hold. If you go to Tractor Supply, you better know what hold and not hold is. But you're not going to go there. You're going to go to wherever to buy the seed you want. And you stick with Princess 77 or Yukon or Riviera is another big one. Very, very good seed. Excellent seed. And you can mix it with the common, which you can buy at Tractor Supply, by the way. And there's a slide here if we ever get there that shows planting different percentages and how it looks over time. 50% common, 75% Riviera, 50-50, blah, 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 blah. And we can show you what the results are. But eventually, the good stuff does overcome even the common stuff. And that works very well.
Does
Yeah.
Jamestown Feed and Seed carry any of the seeds you're talking about? Do you know that?
Again, you really need to keep going around to these places. They used to carry Riviera. I'm not sure that they still do. The place that's up there down the street from them, oh, the mulch place, what's the name of the,
Conventional hardwood home.
Yeah,
whoever that's, there's a place right there.
Yeah,
that's it.
They also carry Riviera.
so they
Right.
carry seed.
Yeah, they carry seeds. Yeah. Thank you. Okay, what do we got? Bermuda has some problems. Dormancy is quick. Is somewhat poor shade tolerant. So you got to grow it into sun because it's not going to do very well. It does have a problem with disease, which is spring dead spot. And that can be controlled to a great extent by the way you fertilize it. So if you do a good fertilizing job at the right times and the right amounts, you can probably get ahead of the spring dead spot. It doesn't go away, by the way. It comes back every year unless you do something with the surrounding turf to deal with it. So that, and it has a very high N requirement. I usually specify like 3 pounds of nitrogen for growing season, as opposed to 2 pounds for zoysia, and some zoysias are 1 pound. So that's quite a difference, 1 to 3, and 3.5 would probably be better for some of the stands that we have. So those are the pluses and minuses. Yeah.
We had a question from someone online. They're asked, how do you fill off a Dallas grass with invasion without filling the rest of the lawn?
That is about a half-hour question. And I would refer them to the books that everybody should have a copy of.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, there's no quick answer to that.
Okay,
There are lots of chemicals that are available.
we'll follow up with them.
Yeah, right. That's a follow-up. That's a biggie. Okay, zoysia grass, some of us are using zoysia. And it's really very good quality stuff. It's a very deep, dense grass. And there are both seeded varieties available and also vegetative varieties like Bermuda, which you can buy at the sod farm. So those are available. For some reason, they don't seem to be cutting zoysia sod very well. I called Meadow Spring Turf, which is the sod farm that we normally make our visits to. Excuse me. And they stopped cutting zoysia in September for some reason. They cut Bermuda year round, and they cut tall fescue year round, but for some reason they don't. Maybe it's a question of what the demand is or not. I don't really know why they do that, but they don't cut it.
Is this a good time to ask about brown patch, or should I wait?
We got a slide on brown patch. Okay, this is Blacksburg. Hope you'll get a chance to go there someday. And this is where they evaluate all your turf grasses. There's a plot in there for everything. And including K31, by the way. And you can pick out K31 from across the room. It's so obvious. That's what we got. That's Blacksburg. And I think that's K31 right there in the middle. Okay. Then we also can go to Virginia Beach. This is still Blacksburg. They just put the tombstones up and everybody went by. They kept calling up, who's buried there? Who's buried there?
Have they retired?
Nobody's
the-
buried there. So they ended
is
up
that
having
for
to take,
Yeah.
they ended up taking down the tombstones because they were tired of answering the questions. Okay, anybody have any idea what that is? Looks like a weird picture, but it has a
Fertilizer
message.
problem.
Too much
Too
fertilizer?
much fertilizer.
Okay, the fertilizer was put down with a drop spreader
Yeah.
and it wasn't put down properly. You should go 2 different directions with the drop spreader to do it properly. That's the only reason that got stuck in there. That's just to make sure you know how to put the fertilizer down. Okay, now we're in Virginia Beach. And most of us will get there eventually because we do go down there for various functions. And this is the combination of tall fescue and hybrid bluegrass. This is the stand of tall fescue and hybrid bluegrass. It's been there for a while. It's beautiful stuff. And over time, the hybrid bluegrass takes over the stand. So when you reseed each year, if you do, you should add just tall fescue seed back there, because you will eventually have a stand of only hybrid bluegrass. Okay, now, and this, of course, is the day after Thanksgiving in Virginia Beach. And look at all your warm season turf. It's all completely dormant. So that's the problem with warm season. You can end up with early dormancy. That's one of the disadvantages of it. Okay, soil, we're gonna get to soil a little bit. What is it? Why is it important? What nutrients are in the soil? How can I tell? We do a lot of work with soil, and we know that it's mostly unconsolidated rock and with a little bit of organic matter in it, like 5%. And then the rest is just air and water. The best soil we have, 50% of it, nothing is there. It's space, pore space, which will hold air and water. And that's to make all of those good things plant available. Okay. This is what we all have, urban soil. Soil that's been disturbed. It doesn't conform to what the native soil is anymore. All the soils in the county, all the soils in the state have been surveyed, identified, and mapped. And we have soil maps. I got a copy of the soil map right here for the county. So we know what all the soils are. And again, everybody thought we had clay, but almost all the soils we have are sandy loams. So that's kind of interesting. But anyway, whatever we have, we mess them up when the builder comes to town. When the builder comes to town, that's just a diagram that shows what's there. Mostly pore space, and then 5 and 45%. And that is soil. That's it. Robin and I do the soil lecture. That's half the lecture already. So you don't have to come back for the soil lecture. The compaction is the biggest problem, because they bring in all kinds of materials and they bring in all kinds of equipment, bulldozers, whoop-de-whoops, and they degrade the structure of the soil, and they also leave all the debris behind. Anything the builder doesn't want to haul away is part of your urban soil. And if it's a lot of wood, sawdust, all kinds of stuff, that's not very good for growing stuff. So these are all the things that you have in urban soil. And you really can't assume that what you're looking at is anything but urban soil. When you go out to do a turf lawn and you walk the property, and you're trying to get a feel for what the soil situation is, usually you see where the woods come up to the back lawn, the side lawn, and you know, the grade is the same. Everything looks like, no big deal, right? But when you actually get into the soil is when you find that it's been altered, no question about it. So you have to be very careful with where you take your soil sample in particular, so that you get a good representation of the soil. But don't assume that you've got native soil, because you really don't. You have urban soil. And this is what soil is for. Holds air, water, gives support to the plants as an anchor. And it's a home for microbes and all the good things in the soil that produce nutrients and make them plant available. Nutrients are no good to anybody unless they are plant available. Okay, NPK, those are the three big items on your soil, on your fertilizer bag, NPK. And the secondaries are calcium, magnesium, and sulfur, and all the micronutrients are in the soil. Now, we do not measure N when we do a soil test. There are exceptions, but we don't measure it because it's a moving target all the time. So we never really quite know. Soil test is what we do, and it gives us all the things that we need to know, which is the P and K. Again, not N. The N, we only go by what the book says the turf needs. The Bermuda needs 2.5, 3.5 pounds. The Zoysia needs 2 pounds. So we just go by the book. We don't go by what the soil test says. So, and we can't have the percent organic matter produced by the lab also. We did that for a while. For a year, we paid the extra money, had the soil organic matter, and it was very, very boring. 5%, 5%, 5%, 5%, 5%. We said, what are we doing this for? We get the same answer all the time. So we haven't really done it much recently, but it might be trying to do it again. Okay, so we write a nutrient plan. And a nutrient plan uses the soil test results and all the other information that you put on your information that you send along with the homeowner's application and all that good stuff. And then we write a nutrient plan. And we try to keep the pH somewhere around 6.5. The native soils in the state of Virginia apparently are in the low 5s, usually 5.2, somewhere in that range. So in order to change the pH, we have to add a lot of calcium carbonate, a lot of limestone, which is ground rock. And one of the questions I was going to ask you this morning when I started, and I forgot to ask you is, you just got a good rainstorm on 1,000 square feet of turf. I'm sorry, 1 acre of turf. You just got an inch of rain last night on 1 acre of turf. An inch of rain, 1 acre. You know how many gallons that is? How many gallons is 1 acre inch of water? How about 27,164 gallons? Is that a lot of water or is that a lot of water? How much limestone, calcium carbonate can you dissolve in 27,164 gallons of water? How many? Anybody want to take a wild ass guess? How about 5.4 pounds? So your acre inch of rain So you just put down 50 pounds of limestone, right? And what you do, you dissolve 5 pounds, basically. So it takes a lot of water to raise the pH of your soil. So you gotta till it in if you can. Tilling it in is wonderful if you can do it. But that's the best way to make the change quickly. If not, we will come up with what you do now, 4 months from now, 6 months from now, how many pounds of limestone you need to put down on your lawn to bring it up. We'll have that in your nutrient plan. Yes, sir.
So the confusing part about putting lines in is if you get your, you do a soil sample this year. And it says you're low on, you need to raise your pH. You get your requirements to do that. But if it takes 2 years for that to get to the levels that you want, does that mean that you keep doing it next year as well, or do you wait for 12 to 18 months before you do another application or another soil sample to see where you are?
What you do is you follow the plan that we give you for 3 years
So there's
and then test again.
Okay.
Yeah. So, because what we're gonna do is gonna bring it up, over the 3-year period. That's what it's designed to do. So, unless you till it in, if you till it in, like if you're redoing the lawn, you till it in, you'll put the whole amount in. So it could be 200 pounds or whatever. But and when you put it surface applied, it's only 50 pounds per 1,000 square foot per application. And then you have to wait several months for that to dissolve. You have to wait for that acreage of water to show up many times to dissolve all of that lime for you. Okay, we do. So we phase 2 is we can broadcast the P&K over the turf, and when we do a report, we tell you exactly when to do it. Usually, if you're a tall fescue lawn, you will have a September, October, November application of your NPK. And that'll be done each year for 3 years, and then again we go back and we retest. Sulfur is very important, and usually you'll see on a fertilizer bag 10% sulfur. So just look for that extra sulfur because that's always important. Okay, these are the county soils that we have, and you'll notice we got a couple of biggies. Emporia complex soil is a biggie. A lot of places you go visit for homeowner turf love reports, you will have Emporia complex, or you'll have Craven Uchi complex. That's another biggie. So if you go to all the uplands, like you go to Ford's Colony, our property is up 100 feet. We're the uplands. So we have the Craven Uchi soil, and we have the Emporia complex soil in our backyard. And it's it's a question of managing those soils to the best of our ability. Craven Uchi again is only 16%, but when you look at it at times, it could be a lot more depending on the aerial photo that you have of the property. There can be a lot more of that soil in your particular area. So you've got to take that into account also. And this is the balance. You'll notice the monkey soil. The monkey soil is the state soil. We have a state bird, which is a cardinal. We have a state flower, which is the what? Dogwood. We got a state soil, which is pamunkey. But in James City County, we have less than 1% of the pamunkey, unfortunately. Mainland Farm, if you know where Mainland Farm is down towards going to the Jamestown Ferry, that farm area down there. That's Pamunkey soil. Beautiful stuff. Go down there sometime. Just take some up and run it through your fingers. It's beautiful stuff. That is Pamunkey soil. Okay. CEC is the important factor in the soil that we all really want to try to manage as best we can. It's the holding capacity, the ability of the soil to hold nutrients and to exchange nutrients one for one. As the plant grows and needs the various nutrients, they should be able to go to your CEC and just pick them off the soil colloids and make use of them in producing whatever it is you're producing, whether it's corn or whether it's grass or whether it's turf or whatever it is. So you need to be able to go in there and keep the CEC. We'd like to get it up as high as we can. And but our soil is what it is. We can improve the organic portion of the soil by adding 1/4 to 1/2 inch of compost. And we recommend when you go visit your homeowners that every year they rake in 1/4 to 1/8 to 1/4 inch of compost into the soil. And that just enriches the soil and improves the CEC of the soil and increases its ability to hold nutrients. So that's the reason we recommend that to the homeowners.
Bob, do we need to know what CEC stands for?
CEC. Yeah. You know what CEC.
I don't.
Yeah.
What is it? Exchange?
Hey.
Spell that.
CATON.
CATON.
An exchange.
Cation exchange capacity.
Okay.
Cation
yeah,
exchange
yeah, oh, yeah.
capacity.
The prior slide.
Yeah, the cation exchange capacity is the ability of the soil colloids to hold on to the cation, the calcium, the magnesium, the sulfur. It holds them and it's able to exchange them when the plant needs to take them up. It releases them to the plant. So the cations or cats are those ions that the soil holds in reserve so that they can be reached periodically. Okay. Okay, cultivation.
So I have a question.
Yeah.
The addition of humic acid, is that just like sod growers or? I've never heard it mentioned in any of our purpose.
Humic acid, humus is part of the percent of organic matter. Organic matter is usually humus, and the rest of the matter has to be broken down. Humic acid is just the chemistry that breaks down the humus into plant available components, basically. I don't know of where you go to buy humic acid. I don't know. I've never seen it available anywhere. Has anybody seen?
I bought it at Home Depot and you can get it online.
Okay, that's fine.
You get a granular, you get a hose in spray.
Okay, there you go. Okay. That's news to me. I really can't comment on that. Okay.
They call it liquid aeration in their sunbrain.
Oh, really? Okay. There you go. Okay, correlation is the best method to do our cultivation. Correlation, you go to Home Depot and Lowe's and you rent a machine that's got a whole bunch of cores that run, and you run the machine back and forth, or the machine runs you back and forth. More likely, and back and forth. In order to do it properly, you really need to do a number of passes in both directions. Because you're doing a very small percentage of actually taking cores in one pass. So you need to run more than one back and forth in order to do it properly. So we're gonna do Tall Fescue. You're gonna want to do it around now, or in September, or late August. If you're gonna do Bermuda grass or zoysia, you want to do it in May. So you want to do it when the grass is able to recover more quickly. So that's when you want to be able to do that. Okay, so that's what we do, core aeration. And soil organic matter, we went over this, it's about, the limit is about 5%. So we can add to it each year if we add a little bit of the soil food web. What makes the soil so important to the plant itself is all the little animals that are in the soil that make up the soil food web. And all plants depend on the soil food web for producing the nutrients that are needed. Okay, I think we take a break for about 5, because I'm going to need to sit down for a minute and grab a drink of water, and then we'll get into seeds. Buy grass seed. We look for Blue Label. We want to buy the seed, tough grass variety seed that we need to do our job with. We have all of these certifications that we have for the turf seeds. And we have the variety recommendations. Of course, we've got the latest one now, which is 2021. We have the turfgrass variety 2021. If you don't have a copy of that list, you should get one. It has the latest cultivars that are available. And most of them are available in our local outlets. Home Depot, Ace Hardware, they're all very good. The establishment, cool seasons, we want to do cool season seeding. Early spring is okay, but not very good. Fall is the absolute best time. So if you're going to overseed your tall fescue lawn, now is the time to do it. Warm season, we should be doing it back in May. We can also do certain Bermuda grasses do very well if we start really early and plant them in February, March. We can get a lot of them established earlier and earlier by planting them earlier. So that's another one. Sod, again, most of the sod farmers, the warm season stuff, they've been cutting year round the sod, except for, as I mentioned, the zoysia. That's just Meadow Spring Turf, which is over in Charles City. I would recommend one day that we all take a little field trip and go over to Meadow Spring Turf and have a tour of their sod farm. It's really very interesting. And you get to know exactly what they're planting. They're cutting sod now. When we do sodding, tall fescue sod right now is selling for $3.50 a square yard. So you can go over there and pick it up, they'll throw it in your trunk for you. Or if you want the Bermuda, it's $3.75 a yard. So that's right from the source. Yes, question.
Well, just going back to, you said the new 2021 recommended list is available. Where did you find it?
plug it in online, right?
It's, yeah, it's
Yeah.
on the extension website.
It's an extension document, so if you go to VCE's website, you can search for it. I've also got it saved, so I can send it out to the group.
We have a copy up here if you want to take a look at it, by the way. I have them going back 20 years. It's amazing to go back and see what was available 20 years ago, what's available today. It's incredible, the way it works out. Okay, sprigs. If you're gonna do sprigs and plugs, you really need an irrigation system, because sprigs in particular have to be irrigated. And when we do sports fields in particular, you gotta be able to irrigate. Otherwise, you'll never be able to get it done properly. So for the homeowner to do it, it's very hard to do unless you have an automatic sprinkler system. It's very hard to germinate a lot of this stuff that we got going here. Okay, the complete makeover is, and this is where when you go out and talk to a homeowner and you check the box that says complete makeover. That's a big word, because complete makeover, and particularly when you check the same box on the soil test result, when I get the soil test result, the complete makeover is to till in all of the lime and the starter fertilizer, and that's tilled into a depth of like 7, 8 inches. So you've got to go to Home Depot and rent a rototiller. And very, very few of the people that I call who are supposed to be doing a complete do-over are not doing a complete do-over. So we save ourselves all a lot of work by just having them do the rototilling and then plant the seed and add a little bit of compost and then rake it all in and then irrigate it to death to get it to come up. So most major do-overs are going to end up to be rototilling, not rototilling, the core aeration, sorry. You're going to do the core aeration approach as opposed to this guy here, because this is a big deal. So, but there are a few people who are doing it, There's one guy we had just the other day, I guess he's going to put a swimming pool in his backyard. So when all that work is done, he will probably, do that part with the rototiller and all that good stuff. But yeah.
If we check complete do-over, are you going to assume that they're going to take the less invasive path versus, or do you give them the option of 2? Because there's a lot of complete do-overs that, yeah, I mean, yeah. And
Well,
they're
usually-
not gonna do it, but that's what you recommend.
Yeah, well, usually I'll read over all the stuff you give me. I'll read all your notes. And then sometimes I just pick the phone up. I just call
them.
I just talked to a fellow the other day and I said, I got your soil test result. You need quite a bit of lime. You had like a 5.2. So we needed quite a bit of lime. And I said, are you going to get a rototiller and come in and till everything in? He said, I already did the coration. It's already done. So most of them will go ahead with the coration. Very, very few are going to go and rent that rototiller. And I think I can say that with 90% confidence that that's the case. So, but I would discuss it with the homeowner while you're there and say, you realize you need a complete makeover, which is normally going get a rototiller or calling somebody in with a rototiller to do it for you. So I would, before you send your reporting in, have that discussion. But if I'm not sure, I'm going to call And what are you doing? Are you rototilling or are you core aerating? And
So if there's no, just killing their lawn.
Yeah, where does the killing it off
Yeah, I
come
mean,
in?
that's what they did
Because
to my
my
lawn.
biggest problem is the sequencing, because
Yeah.
once you throw in pre-emergence, once you throw in killing everything with glyphosate, then that changes the whole picture, and you gotta put everything in order for them, for the most part.
okay, but most of them still will go the route with the core aeration.
Most of them, yeah.
So, as I said, I can count on one hand in all these years, the numbers that actually go get the tiller. So why go through all that with a tiller when you know they're not
Well,
gonna
this- I
do it?
mean, this sounds much better than killing the lawn off,
Um,
you know.
so if they just aerate through the weeds, is
Yeah.
what you're saying, don't bother
Don't
killing
bother
anything
killing
off?
any.
Yeah, if you're not gonna come in and just rototill everything, then I wouldn't go in and kill all the weeds.
When you say rototill,
The
Or-
different, no, that's
The
different.
rototiller is an
Rototiller's a different-
actual, you know, you're a farmer, you're actually
Right.
going and putting in you're tilling the
I've
field.
done that too, that's not an
So
easy
you,
job.
so you start with them putting in the pre-emergent and they wait for that 2 weeks, correct, or whatever, and then they start their aeration and their additives. Is it where the pre-emergent has to come in here before, you put down your seed?
You lost, why the pre-emergent? What are we using the pre-emergent
For
for?
your winter weeds.
Oh, okay, well, the pre-emergent, you should follow the label. You wouldn't put the pre-emergent down until 4 weeks to 6 weeks after you put the seed down.
So
That's the part that's
following
got
the
me
seeding.
confused, yeah.
So,
You
Is there
never
any way
put,
we
you
can
never
get a
put
handle on
pre-emergent weed killer down and then put seed down.
Well,
It's
except
gonna
for
kill the
tena-
seed.
Hey, except for tenacity, which works in,
Okay,
If-
well,
if you're seeding. Okay.
Yeah.
So the pre-emergent's not gonna fall into this
yeah, but
until after.
tenacity is not a pre-emergent. That's the difference. Pendimethalin is a pre-emergent. Tenacity is a regular, a regular
Well, they-
herbicide. It's an herbicide. It's an herbicide.
David, somebody said that it works as both a pre and post-emergent tenacity. It depends on. the
Well, if it
application.
doesn't kill the seed,
Doesn't kill
again,
it.
I would read the label. If it says, don't put this down until 4 weeks
Okay, I
after
need-
you've seeded, if that's what you do. It'll tell you on the label whether that's the case. or not.
It's advertised as being safe for seeding.
Okay, well, then that's fine. As long as it says it on the label, yes.
You said, how did you say you had the rototill together?
The soil test will say 11 inches. Till then, 11 inches.
Well, so that could be a real problem for people who have irrigation. systems.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. Oh, yeah.
So-
This
so
is a
that's
big
great.
deal. That's what I'm trying to say.
Can I ask another question? So
Yeah.
if you core air, if you properly core it, you're talking about two or more passes, which
Yeah.
most commercial guys aren't gonna do, but if you did it yourself, then is it a good idea to then go over the lawn with the mower and break that core up so you can get a nice base before you seed?
Back me up. Where are we
So,
now?
so you core aerated, you've got all your cores
It's all-
sitting on the surface.
Yeah, okay, gotcha.
Then you come back in there with your mower and break up those pores, so you now sort of put a nice layer of dirt on there before you over.
Yeah, whatever. Some people take a piece of chain link fence and run it over, but there are lots of ways to do it. They just core aerated my neighbor's lawn this past week. And they ran over the whole bloody thing with all the, and they went around all the edges. They did a very, very thorough job. And he has a sprinkler system, so they were very, very careful. And then, of course, they broadcast the seed right on top of that. They didn't do anything beyond that, that's it. So the seeds are gonna end up taking care of themselves as they get rained in, so to speak.
What, what's the preferred treatment for composting? Do you do the composting before you aerate? Do you compost after you aerate, before you seed, or you do the aeration, seeding, and then put the compost down?
It's pretty much your own preference. Where you just gonna want to get it all down and get it all kind of run over, and then roll it if you can. If you can roll it, now you're really gonna do a job getting that seed soil contact. The thing that grows seed is seed soil contact. So whatever it takes to do that, that's what you do. I can't give you an A, B, C, D, E. You have to just do it yourself and see how it works out.
So if they're gonna do their own renovation, whether it's tilling or chloration, they need to know to cut the grass really low.
Yeah.
And make sure the soil is somewhat wet, it's got some moisture in it.
Yeah. Right.
Before they either do either one.
Right.
But I just rented a tiller at Home Depot. I didn't know what I was doing. So I'll share it with the class. What I learned from Home Depot, you can get the mid-ton tiller, which has a breakdown handle that'll fit in the back of an SUV, because I don't have a truck or a trailer. And rent it for half a day, and I did a quarter acre lot plus, wore me out. But that's about all I got.
And you went down 11 inches.
And no, ma'am, not with a mid-ton. You get
Mid-time,
4
you
to 5
went
inches,
4 or 5, okay.
but you want to mow it as low as you can before you do this.
Okay.
And have some moisture.
Roll if you can, and water. Complete makeover, we considered sod, sprigs, very, except for sports fields, sprigs are very uncommon. We could do golf courses, things like that, but not for homeowners. Okay. Once the brand new turf is up 4 inches, get in there and lop off 1 inch. And keep it as high as possible for as long as possible. The taller the tall fescue is, the better off you are. So, and then use a mulching mower. Leave the leaves on the lawn using a mulching mower, because that's good organic material you're adding back into your soil. So you want to do a return of the clippings. Do not haul away the clippings and give them to some neighbor of yours. Just, these are the weeds that we are dealing with, and they're everywhere. Annuals, biannuals, perennials, grassy, broadleaves. And they're just about everywhere you go is a weed. And there are lots of reasons for weeds. We discussed some of it. Some of it is not having good turf cover. If you have good turf cover, you're going to cut way down on the weeds, and you're going to have lawn diseases, which will give you bare spots, and a bare spot is a weed. So you want to eliminate the bare spots as much as you can as we move along on that. Okay. Usually it's improper mowing. Generally, we mow too low. Mow too low is how weed infestation gets out of hand. So you want to keep it going. You want to do your core aeration. You want to make sure you keep traffic under control, and you want to get rid of any diseases that are in a part of the lawn. And we have a few of those diseases that we have to deal with. If you have a cultural problem, you fix the problem. Some with weeds like mine, I just pull them out. That's one way to do it. I would not recommend it if you have a lot of weeds, but if there's just a few, just give them a handful and sprinkle a little bit of seed where the weed was. and go on with your life. That's what we do. Okay, we talked about pre-emergent crabgrass control. That works very well if you get it down early in the spring. And you probably want to do 2 treatments if you've had a bad infestation in the past. If you really haven't had any problems, you probably only need the 1 application. And in the fall, the pre-emergent is for chickweed over the winter. The winter annuals, chickweed and that dead nettle are the winter annual broadleaf weeds that you want to control by putting down your pre-emergent control in September. And there again, you cannot seed if you put it down unless you're using mesotrione. I got that right? I got it right. Okay, yeah. Okay. Okay, you really have to go and update these lists almost every year. You got to walk through the Home Depots and the Ace Hardwares and see what it is that's current. These are all the different weeds. Most of them are like Trimec, Trimec 2,4-D, Micropop, and Dicamba. That's the big Trimec. That's everywhere, every year, and everybody sells it. And that's the one that we normally put down in most cases. But some of this, like K-Grow, I don't think Kmart's around anymore, so you probably can't get that one anymore anyway. So every year you got to go through and redo the list. And we do not recommend the turf builder with the weed control. You don't really recommend putting down fertilizer and weed control. They really should be kept separate because they are separate aspects of your control of the quality of your turf. So you do the weed control and you do the fertilizer, and try not to mix the 2. Scott's loves to sell you that stuff, but I don't think we need to do that. Okay, diseases, we were talking about brown patch came up before. So now's the time to talk about brown patch. Rhizoctonia is the big problem with tall fescue. And all tall fescue gets brown patch. There isn't any. What I would suggest to you is that the best way to control it is to mix the hybrid bluegrass seed with your tall fescue seed. The hybrid bluegrass is a beautiful blade, and it's a prophylactic to your movement of brown patch through the stand. The brown patch moves leaf to leaf to leaf to leaf. If it moves to a K31 leaf and you've got a bluegrass leaf, it doesn't go anywhere. It stops. So you stop progressing the tall, the brown patch through the stand. So you've got a lot of reasons to use a tall fescue, and brown patch is one. But there's a lot of reasons to use, the mixture of the seeds to give you that extra. It's a multiculture instead of a monoculture. We don't want another potato famine, so we have 95 different potatoes now that we grow. Same thing with diseases. Make sure you plant the cultivars that will survive no matter what. Yeah, question.
Once you get brown patch, do you treat it or do you leave it and hope that it goes away?
Heritage is a very good treatment. Heritage, I think, is a recommended treatment.
So you
But
recommend
you need to get it early. If you let it go too long, not good. That is, it's good also, it's a good practice to remove the clippings and discard them, by the way, rather than leave the clippings on. That's a good time to remove the clippings, but you need to get rid of them. Okay, that brown patch is very bad stuff, very difficult to control.
If you've had that problem, you wanna put down your treatment in July or like June or what? Get ahead of it?
You'd be even earlier than that, probably early July. As soon as the temperatures are up over 85 degrees on a regular basis, you've got brown patch. So, and that's, when is that? June, July, somewhere in there. And the other thing is, be careful with the irrigation. You don't want to keep water on the leaves overnight. So water later in the morning, more towards when the sun's coming up, to dry the leaves off. So the leaves are not spending a lot of hours wet, because that will transmit the disease as well. So you want to do that. Yes.
Question, is it transmitted by maybe some of the lawn services?
Absolutely, yeah. I
It
think a
is.
lot of the stuff that we have to deal with comes because it's moved from place to place. You don't have to be a genius to look at these big machines
Yeah.
and you see where they go with them all. Boom, 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 boom. Yeah, I think a lot of what we have to deal with, including very dull mower blades, you need to knock on the door of the Fens of the world and say, hey,
Yeah,
you guys got to improve. So, okay, roots. We pretty much talked these. We talked about roots, how essential they are, and how important it is for us to fertilize properly. The majority of the weight of a plant, I think it's something over 75%, are in the roots. 90%. See, I'm wrong. 90%. So roots is a big chunk of what we manage when we manage turf. So we need to manage them properly. So very, very good. That we do that, of course, through nutrient management planning. And these are things we've already talked about: watering, nutrient deficiencies, NPKs, low soil oxygen, core aeration that deals with the low soil oxygen, and compaction, and mowing height. We talked about all these things. And this is that little slide about, well, this is the one about the temperature in the ambient with 98 degrees, the soil temperature at 1.5 inches is 83 degrees. Soil temperature at 1 inch rather is 83 degrees. And the turf canopy can be up at 109 degrees at this point. And here's our little guy with the mowing height. Keep the mowing up, but you don't have to worry about the crabgrass. And percent crabgrass at 3 inches is only 1%. These are studies that are done by Virginia Tech. So they're all based on studies. Okay, we all have it. We usually see a copy of this with the material that we go see the homeowner with. These are some lawns near you. This one is kind of interesting in that this is a new home in Ford's Colony. And that is common Bermuda. And that's what was there before they built the house. And all they did was schmooze the ground over and the common Bermuda came back up. And the homeowner just is maintaining that common Bermuda lawn. So it shows you how prolific just plain ordinary common Bermuda can be. There are lots of places where it does a great job. So you don't have to do anything with this one. And this is a regular Bermuda grass lawn. Let's see what else we got here. This is Celebration Bermuda. This is what they sell at the sod farm. If you want to make that field visit to the sod farm, Celebration Bermuda is one of the big numbers that they sell. And that, of course, is our famous tall fescue. And I don't know what variety it is, but that is tall fescue. And there's a little more of the tall fescue. And some more. And that's a little bit more of a celebration. Celebrations are beautiful. Of course, this is in June, so it's all greened up and ready to go for the season. More. Okay, I think we covered it. Hallelujah. I think we got it done.
Thank you, Bob.
And, unless there are any other questions, we do have a couple of things up here. We have a copy of the seed list up here if you want to look at the latest seed list.
So Bob, going back to mowing height for a second.
Yeah.
Is it, what's the best practice for mowing if, with a tall fescue, the higher the better, but do you regulate the height based on, like in the wintertime, do you have it lower during the winter and then raise it back up during the summer, or do you keep it at a constant height? What's your recommendation?
Actually, in the winter, you could cut it a little bit lower because really you don't have the leaf growth that's going on. And you know, you want to keep it free of fall weed, lawn weed, leaves. Or the leaves are going to blow off the lawn or are removed more easily if you cut them down a little bit. I would the main thing with keeping the height is through the heat dry summer months. That's what I would very definitely keep it way up. And fall, winter, you could cut back a little bit on it. And the same thing is true of Bermuda grass. I try to leave mine real low all summer, and then into the fall, I try to get fan to raise his blade a little bit and leave me a nice little cushion for the winter, because it acts like a little bit of there's not much in the way of roots available anyway, because most of the warm season turf loses all its roots over the winter. It's got to start all over again, but it does keep what's there a little bit warmer through the colder months of the year. So
It doesn't hurt to cut it back, though. I have Bermuda, and you're dealing with these little sticks, or dead Bermuda in the fall that the dog is bringing in with their coats. So I tend to like to cut it back. That's not damaging it.
no.
Okay, just eliminates all the stuff you get on your shoes, your clothes.
Yeah, again, I just pretty much satisfy myself.
Yeah,
Even though I know we're losing all the roots anyway.
yeah.
I like to say, oh, I'm gonna keep the roots nice and warm for the winter. So I try to play games with myself all the time. Hey, like I really know what I'm doing now, but I put on a good show.
Yeah,
Hey, yeah,
But not all mowers can go up to 4 inches cutting height.
that's the biggest problem we
My
have.
wife talked to you about a Cub Cadet
Yeah,
tractor.
yep.
And I got tall fescue, and anybody need a good tractor for Bermuda, I got one.
Yeah. No, you hit the nail right on the head. The biggest problem we have is you don't have a blade.
You know,
It's up there, so. All of this is academic. It's great at Virginia Tech, and we talk about this in Blacksburg. But when you go out to Ace Hardware to buy a lawnmower, what happens? You got what they got, that's it. And you make do with it, so. So follow all the other directions except the mowing up. Until they come up with a mower that works. Yeah,
Can you talk about army worms for a minute?
we did have an infestation of armyworms, did we not? Yeah. Does everybody have a copy of this gizmo here? You should all have a copy of this.
This
I
is
don't-
the North Carolina State University Turf Grass Pest Management.
Digitally, we have.
You have it, whatever. Anyway, there's a whole page in there on armyworms. So it's a moth that comes up from Florida and then lays a whole bunch of eggs. And can eat up a lawn pretty good. And with the change in our temperatures, global warming, which is not supposed to be happening, but seems to be, we're getting more and more of the moths up from Florida. So we never saw armyworms before. But this year we had a fairly decent infestation of them.
This may sound like a dumb question. What's it look like? I mean, what does the grass look like when you have? Yeah, but I mean, does it look like, does it start off looking like a ground patch and then it just moves or?
It's the fact that they have a picture in there.
They have a picture of the worm.
They'll work it out.
They have a picture of that it should be damage.
And we're supposed to notify forest immediately and tell the homeowner to contact the lawn service immediately. What's our response?
I don't know.
I think
Well,
that's
well,
probably
that's
best to tell your new extension agent forest that it's present and you can identify and keep track of where it is. And if they do use a lawn service, absolutely tell them so that they don't move it like we talked about. I'll also say if you are a current lawn ranger or if you have been in training for the past couple of years, I have hard copies of that manual available for you. Just let me know and I'll leave it for your office.
Yeah, we use that because it's very, very user friendly. It's reasonable. So we can buy a batch of them. And every ranger can have one. And yeah, we've been using these for 10 years, 12 years ago. And as a job.
So getting back to army work just for a second. There seems to be a little confusion out there. Talking to different people as to how you treat. In some, I've read where you don't really go out and spray the lawn preventatively for them, you wait till you actually have them and then treat because the stuff that you have to use is a contact rather than a secondary.
I think you only treat when you see the evidence that they're there, yes, if that's the question. You don't do a pre-treatment. You see the issue, you identify the problem, and then you treat from there, basically, that's it. You have to identify that, yes, it is an army worm, and then you treat accordingly. It's not a bull bug or another type of problem. So once you identify what it is, and do we do that through Virginia Tech or?
I think you can. Anecdotally, I've heard that if you take a little bit of water, a bucket of water, mix in some dish soap,
Yeah.
and then pour that on the lawn, the worms themselves will come to the surface.
Right.
That seems to be the easiest
Oh.
way to tell if it's truly army worm.
It actually works.
I hope you that doesn't mean that you have army
My
worm.
neighbor got,
Okay,
and we were trying to figure out what he had because he brought in some brand new sod for an area that he was having repaired. He watered it like he was supposed to. And about 8 weeks later, all of a sudden, that sod started to die off. And we thought, well, maybe it's just overwatering or something else. So, and about that same time, the article about the Army one. So we went out there with soapy water and put it on there. And that's exactly what he had. And what he surmised was the sod had it when he brought it in.
Was he able to replace sod?
Yeah, they did after a little bit of fighting, but
Yeah.
they did. But the soapy water thing, if you put it on there, they don't come up right away. You have to be patient. It takes like 5 or 10 minutes, but they do come up.
And at one point, Dr. Durr had made a sheet of weed control products that we could pass out to the homeowner. And if I could find that, is there some way you could update it? I think I've still got it somewhere.
Yeah, we could probably do that.
Just a product thing so that we know what, because they usually will ask us what product for this or that to use. Would be nice to be able to, something to hand them. I'll find it.
Yeah, absolutely. We can kind of do it the same way we have for the fertilizers. We have that table.
Oh, yeah, you've got, yeah.
We can
Oh,
do that for
yeah,
weed control as well.
Yeah, mentioning the fertilizer table, that's a good point. Robin went around to all of the locations to look at what kind of fertilizer is available. Because when we write a plan, it doesn't make much sense to write a plan and
you can't
have
find
a
it.
fertilizer they can't find. So we make sure that we specify something that's in Lowe's or wherever. And one of the big problems we have is all of our fertilizers are 0 phosphorus. So we used to have 16-8-8. So when you get a soil test result in, and it was low P and K, 16-8-8. Well, now you can't get a 16-8-8. So what do? So you're going to be seeding anyway. So we put a start. They have not eliminated the starter fertilizer, which is the big second number, big phosphorus. So we give you a shot of starter fertilizer, and that takes care of the phosphorus for the rest of the year. So that's how we overcome it. But we only put down fertilizers that are available on Robin's list. Make sure we do that right. So. Okay. Well, thank you all very much.
Yeah,
Thank you, Bob.